upcoming. I am recording this. I'll post this one because we're changing what we're doing today. So Reed, I apologize. You're not going first. Reed had contacted me, but you're welcome to stay around for as long as you can. Reed, I know you said you had a commitment. So a couple things. First of all, the DBQ. So I want to talk about your practice DBQ that you did yesterday. I really I messed up the timing on that. You probably didn't want to hear this, but I should have had it due Thursday so I could have them graded and we could go through it. So I only got through about 10 or 15 of them at this point. So I have some general notes about that. I want to take a look at the question, kind of review that. The ones that I graded were okay. I think there's some things that we're just missing. I know there's lots of moving parts, so that's why we're doing these practices. The other part of today will be the second full practice that I want to do. It's going to be in my AP classroom. So it's something we haven't done yet. It worked pretty well. I did it with the APUSH classes just yesterday. It's not a perfect situation, but it forces you to, do everything on the same screen, so to speak. It's not going to be exactly like the demo process, but it's pretty close. And it allows me to, basically what it allows you to do is have a report of the rubric kind of as we go through it. Now, unfortunately, the new rubric is not applied to it, but what we can deal with that on Monday. So that's the plan. We're not going to do any presentations today. I think it's more important to focus on. This is really a question of process and organization more than anything. So that's the focus of today. Before I begin, are there any questions or concerns or anything regarding either the last practice or anything moving forward? Let me ask you this, as you're contemplating that. Did anyone do the demo, and did anyone have any problems with the AP demo yesterday? So please, let's do this. If you had, just in the chat bar, if you would just send a message to me if you did the demo, and if you didn't, you didn't. I didn't say you had to do it, but it was recommended. But if you, I just want to get a sense of how many people have actually went through the demo process. So if you would just do that as I'm talking, I would appreciate that. Okay, I got one positive. Very good. Very good. Good. Thank you. Sometimes I see, all I see are black names, so I get a little bit freaked out. Okay, so let's take a look at our DBQ from the other day. 1 second here, I gotta shoot. So this was our question that you did. Evaluate whether the new imperialism of the late 1800s and early 1900s was caused primarily by political motivations or economic motivations. For the most part, I thought that, the ones I did, I didn't do them all. We got the contextualization and the thesis. I thought we did a pretty good job describing and sourcing the documents. Obviously, there's Prince Leopold, a message to the French Parliament. The French are involved. Cartoon with Queen Victoria and the Kaiser. And this, the German Social Democratic Party. So the documents were fine. That part of it was okay. What I thought was lacking overall was evidence beyond the documents. There were very, very few attempts, even attempts, at putting that information in. So my first question to all of you, and if you would please feel free to unmute yourself and shout this out. Talking about imperialism of the late 19th century and early 20th century, what is some evidence beyond the documents that you could discuss in like a sentence or probably 2 sentences?
Partition of Africa.
Say again?
Partition of Africa.
Well, that's sort of implied. What would be the best way to describe the partition of Africa or the carving of Africa? And Melinda, I'm going to call on you because you're the one I saw who did it, if you're here.
The Congo?
No, because the Congo was
the Berlin Conference?
The Berlin Conference. So Logan, I think that was Logan who said that first. Logan, yeah, the Berlin Conference, the carving up of Africa. Can we write 2 sentences about that? Can we include maybe Bismarck, set that up? Can we include maybe that it was part of like German nationalism that they wanted? That's sort of the idea. Now, what I didn't see, the Belgian Congo part, what's the big takeaway from the Belgian Congo? What do we remember about that case study, those of you who did it, or everybody did it actually? That's not mentioned in the documents.
King Leopold kind of used it as his like personal like funding machine.
Yes, but in terms of that's very, very true. But what is the anecdotal evidence, or what is the King Leopold's Congo, Free State of Congo remembered for?
Killing millions of people to get rubber.
Correct. So that whole aspect of genocide, the millions of people who had their arms chopped off, that's evidence beyond the documents. I know you all know it. So there was one of the reasons I picked that question is like, oh, great, they can break down King Leopold's Congo stuff, talk about that, and add in stuff related to the evidence beyond the documents. Now think back, if you would. We all did an activity on the Belgian Congo. What were some other activities or case studies that we studied during imperialism that you could put in here as outside evidence?
Opium Wars.
The Opium Wars in China. So there was a Chinese document in there, but it doesn't discuss the Opium Wars. So certainly you could talk about the Opium Wars. What else?
Cecil Rhodes, guys.
Cecil Rhodes, Scramble for Africa, Rhodesia. Very good. What else? What colony was the British? What was Britain's most important and lucrative colony?
Yeah.
India. Yep. Did anything happen in India in the 1850s or 1860s that was memorable?
Gained independence.
Pardon?
They gained independence.
No, that didn't happen until the 40s, 1940.
The Sepoy Rebellion.
Could you say that again, Matt? You kind of broke up.
The Sepoy Rebellion. The
Sepoy Rebellion or the Indian Mutiny. Very good. What is the most famous poem related to the age of imperialism?
White Man's Burden.
White Man's Burden. Now, again, some of you may have put that in there, but the 10 or 12 that I didn't grade didn't have any of that. So again, we have to remember those are 2 really, really easy, relatively easy points to get. So I don't want you to miss out on an opportunity for that. Some of them may go along with the document. Some of them you just put it as a separate paragraph or a couple sentences at some point. Oh, by the way, this is related to this subject. And it definitely has to be related. Here's another, I wrote down a list real quick before a few minutes before. What American author was very, very significant in this drive for imperialism or expansion? He was a naval officer. Does anyone remember? Actually, the Kaiser forced every captain in his navy to read the book and have it on board. Does the name Alfred Thayer Mahan ring a bell? Okay, the influence of sea power on history. Now that you may recall that from your American history days, but that certainly applies here. But I would think, you know, one of the reasons we did the case studies is you have to go back to your case studies. Everybody did something related to imperialism. We all did the Congo, and then you did something else. Well, that's something else. That's your outside information. Okay. So when we're working today on today's activity, today's practice, you know, keep that in mind. The second part that I want to share with you, this isn't anything really new, but I just sort of like the format. This comes from the AP review page, and the guy who was leading this, like I said a couple times, he has, I went to a workshop with him, and this is basically a rehash of what we're doing, and it's just sort of a flow chart. So again, I think I'm recording this. I hope I'm recording this. But I'll throw this in Schoology as well. So when we're talking about, if you want to jot this down, feel free. So remember, we start with context. What were the events that led up to the discussion at hand? So many of you did a good job of contextualization regarding the Industrial Revolution. Some of you talked about the various revolutions of 1848, but primarily the creation of the nation state, that kind of thing. That was good. Some of you went all the way back to God, Gold, and Glory. Remember, that's the first age of discovery. That's a little bit dicey, just because of the time element. I would try to stay in the century of what you're talking about. So in this case, this is 19th century. Try to stay in the 19th century. You could certainly talk about the nationalism with Italian unification, German unification, that kind of stuff. So again, 3 or 4 sentences of context. Your thesis, one thing I saw, and I saw this with the APE students, please make sure that your thesis is in the paragraph of contextualization. Some of you were spacing. Now, that's a minor thing. And again, I don't know exactly how they're going to interpret the DBQ this year, but it needs to be up front. You know, it doesn't need to be the first thing, but it needs to be at the bottom of that first paragraph. So just keep that in mind. Again, and I thought we were doing a pretty good job of this, include the reason, you know, in this case, they're saying give 2 reasons. So the question regarding, was it political or economic? It was political because of X and Y, or is economic because of X and Y in your thesis. Remember, if you're at a loss for your thesis, how do I write a thesis statement? Sort of rephrase the question, but add because of a specific factor. Don't say because of political or economic reasons. Say because of German nationalism, expansion of industrial trade. Those are 2. Okay. And again, if I'm moving too fast, please feel free to unmute yourself and get me to stop, because you know me, I'm rolling now. So again, that's the first part, the thesis here to the arrow over the left. So reason number 1, a topic sentence. You know, I thought we did a pretty good job of grouping the documents, explain them and how they support your topic sentence. Okay. Don't forget that. Don't forget to, that these relate back to your thesis. These relate back to your argument. It would be at this point, well, now they do HAP, but in the first paragraph, I would strongly suggest that you cap at least one of the documents, the easiest one to do. Okay. Remember, you only need 2 caps, and remember, you only have to do one of the C or A or P or P. You don't have to do CAPP. You just have to do one of those for one document. So paragraph 1, cap one of them, describe one of them that support your thesis. Okay. Then I would say, if you can get a piece of outside information in there, that's where you would do it. So for example, in the first document, you may say I'm forgetting the question now. Imperialism was caused because of economic motivations, and you use document 1, Prince Leopold's or King Leopold's Belgian Congo. Describe that, cap that, find another one in there, and then you would go 2 or 3 sentences. Oh, by the way, Leopold also maybe committed the first mass genocide in world history. Millions of people were killed, their hands were cut off, blah, 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 specific details about that. Done, paragraph 1. Paragraph 2 is your second reason. Again, you're going back to your thesis. What are 2 documents that support that? 2 or 3 in some respects. Again, now you're capping the second set, okay, or capping one of the documents in the second one, relating it back to your second point of your thesis, okay? And there, if you can come up with another example, if you can come up with the Berlin Conference, or you can come up with the white man's burden, something like that, then you would put it in there. Now, if someone was asking me a question there, just go ahead and ask it, please, because otherwise I got to shut everything down and go look at it.
Could you also put outside information in the counter argument, or does it have to be in like the reason number 1 and 2?
No, you can put it in the counter argument. My fear is, and again, this is something that you're going to have to evaluate yourself. I know many of you put your time on it, but this is something you're going to have to ask yourself. Do you even have time to get to the counter argument? That would be my major concern. So if you do, certainly that makes total sense. And I don't know who asked me that question, but yeah, that makes total sense. But do you understand my point that I don't want you to run out of time? Okay. So this would be page 2 of it. So again, after, the main part of this is oops, sorry. Oops. Okay, so let me go back. I'm sorry. One second. You cannot minimize. Great. Okay, the main focus of this is we got to get through that chart on that first slide. So you got to do context. You got to do thesis. You got to get your main arguments in. You got to get your caps in, all that stuff. So that's like the majority of the points. If you can get the outside evidence in that first part, in your 2 or 3 paragraphs, great. If you have time, all of a sudden you get through that, you've dealt with the 5 documents, you've capped 2 of them, and you got 10 minutes left. Hey, here we go. Now we're shooting for 9 and 10 points. Now I can get into my complexity, my counter argument, even if you set up your counter argument in your thesis and you don't get to it, that's okay. Just, you have to kind of plan ahead. So this is an opportunity to, this is not necessarily required. This would be my goal. This would be my hope, to begin the counter argument process. Does that make sense? I'm going to stop sharing now. Okay, that was Gianna. Okay, Gianna, did that response make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So are there any other questions regarding this formatting?
Was it kind of like 2 body paragraphs where you split up all of your evidence between like the 2 different points that you like label in your thesis?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's, I'm so, I know that we got just 4 days, but again, I'm learning this as you guys are too. This is totally new for me. And I think that's probably the best way to go about it. After I've seen some of your work, your practice stuff, I just think that's the most efficient. And that's where you need to be now. Like, I will say this, some of the APE students, their stuff, they're doing 3 arguments with a counter argument, no problem. But no offense to you, they're better than you, better at it, at this point, because they've done it before. But for you guys, I think for the most part, don't take this the wrong way. I just think the best way to go about this is to try to do 2 arguments. I'm thinking that they're going to make this question somewhat, make a decision, economic, political, social, economic, something like that, that you should probably do that. Now, on the other hand, if they have something like a question, evaluate the importance, that means ranking. That may mean 3 paragraphs. But again, the most important part of ranking is, this is the most important reason, this is the second most important reason, and oh, by the way, there might have been some other reasons. Okay, so they want you to just make the jump and make the argument that something is more important than the other thing. Does that answer your question, Kate?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Anybody else?
So for me, when I wrote my thing, I wrote a paragraph of a counter argument, and then I combined my 2 reasons into like 1 paragraph. So I should like split up the second paragraph.
Not necessarily. I mean, I think Julie, I didn't look at yours yet. It's just how I happen to read it. But I would think, as long as if you feel comfortable in your explanations, the format, I guess we shouldn't get too hung up on the format of how it's going to be evaluated. If the stuff is in there, they're going to find it. I'm emphasizing the format to make it easier for yourself. Okay, so it's really, if you have 4 paragraphs or 3 paragraphs, if you have 5 paragraphs, it doesn't really matter. But again, I'm just trying to get it so you have a process to follow, that you can save time. You're not, I want you to focus on the argument, the information, to get it out as quickly and as efficiently as possible. Does that sort of make sense? I'm just trying to give you a guide.
Yeah.
Okay. So, when test day comes, don't sweat it too much. Oh my God, I've gotten 6 paragraphs. Fine. Great. Answer your question. If you're doing that checklist, if you're doing a contextualization, 3-4 sentences, if you have a thesis with some specific examples, if you've addressed the question describing the documents, you got your cap on paragraph, you got your 2 caps. You could have 2 caps in the same paragraph. Doesn't matter. But if you get all that, and then you're fine. But I just want to create a structure for you that, you know, you have sort of a plan of attack going into this thing. So, anybody else?
I'm not sure if you got around to reading mine specifically yet, but one of the things that I said in mine is that an example of like just how you would like the format of the DBQ that you're looking for, and like the context or the content of something like that and how we should answer it, because like with all the stuff that we have been doing, it's the one problem that I'm having is like putting it into a finished product and figuring out how to like, I don't know,
Oh,
take all
so
of
you want a
it.
sample?
Yeah.
Okay. I will look for one. I will look for one.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll put that out to you over the course of the weekend, or if not today.
Mhm.
And again, that's a guess for me. I don't know how these are going to look. I have a sneaking suspicion.
Mhm.
We're doing it exactly the right way, which means nobody really knows what they're, I want to say I know what we're doing, but I don't think there's you could have a perfect one. But I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. I have a number of push ones that are like really good, but I don't really want to give those. I could probably give them to you, but it's a different sort. I'll find something. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else before I move on to your next one? Okay, so today, I'm assigning, and it's actually it's going to open up in 1 minute on my AP classroom. But stay with me because there's a couple instructions that you need to do. The DBQ is going to be on Bismarck. I really had a hard time finding one that I liked. The one I was going to give you a DBQ that they did on the review about Italian unification. It was just I just thought it was too specific and too nitpicky. So anyway, this is one from I think 2016. It was a released exam. It was a 7-document one. So if you want to just make a note of it, you will eliminate. You do not have to. I can't manipulate this. You cannot. You do not have to do documents 5 and 7. So please, just when you look at it, ignore document 5, ignore document 7. Okay. So let me pull that up just to give you a heads up on it. And like I said, let me share the screen. There we go. So again, you can ignore the directions. I will blow this up. Oops. So the question states, evaluate whether the policies of Otto von Bismarck's government represented traditional conservatism or a new kind of conservatism in the 19th century. So again, this is sort of something we would see. It's either or. You're making a decision. You're making an argument, as it would. So is Bismarck traditionally conservative? Hint, hint, Metternich, that kind of stuff. Or is it a new kind? And I'm not going to give you, but there's a definite outside information thing right there. And I think we just kind of talked about this. So you'll see legislation passed by Bismarck's government. This is a German socialist giving a speech. Really, really key document here. Basically, if you interpret this one right, and this is something to keep in your back of your mind, the cartoons and the pictures are often, if you get the cartoon or the picture right, you generally can do the whole thing based on this. And if you take a look at this closely, you should be able to, it's pretty, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Caption says, the liberal says to the other two, don't worry, when the wind shifts, I'll be on top again. So we're ignoring document 5. Do not do document 5. We're looking at document 6. This is a speech by Bismarck, a new accident insurance bill, and you will see document 7. I don't have document 7 on here. So again, eliminate documents 5 and 7. So you only have to do 5. And again, really focus on what we talked about today. Well, you try to do as good a job as you can, but remember, you know, get to the context, stay in the 19th century to the most part. I can see a way where you could get into the 18th century regarding this. In your contextualization, make a very clear claim, evaluate. Bismarck's policies represented whatever because of this and that. So the very specific things that you're going to talk about. And just try to make sure we try to fit that outside evidence in there. And again, if you have time, get to the counter argument, get to the, on the other hand, and some of that may be implied in there. You know, that's the other thing we have to think about with the either or, depending on how you start rolling. You very well may be getting the counter argument within the actual body of the paragraph as well. So that's a way to do it too. So this document, now this is the tricky part today. Oh, it's not really tricky, but so you're going to log into my AP Classroom. You're going to start this, and it's got the timer. It's going to have a 45-minute timer on there, and when you're done, it lops it off. So don't open it up and think, oh, I'm going to go get a snack and stuff like that. Once you open it up, you're there. That's part of the reason I want you to do this, is when you commit, and do it. So I think I had this due by Sunday night. I would like it to be due. Remember, I would prefer, actually, if you could get it done today, would be nice. And then you can spend the weekend continuing with your rescue packet, continuing with your general review stuff. So for next week, we will meet. We will be meeting Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. And there we'll probably get a couple of the presentations, but I want to do some kind of rapid fire review stuff with a program called Menti. So it'll be a little bit, Monday we'll talk about all these DBQs, talk about some strategy, do some general review. Tuesday, sort of this Menti brainstorming thing. Wednesday will be very short. It'll be my on to Berlin and, you know, my motivational speech as best I can. And just a final check to make sure that everything's ready. So we're almost there. And hey, remember, you know, you're talking to, here's an old football coach. I want everybody to be perfect. I want everybody to get a 10. So overall, we're doing really, really well. Having 38, 40 people here on a Friday morning on a day that you're not even supposed to have school is a credit to you. So, you know, keep doing what you're doing. You guys that have been showing up have been doing exactly what I've been asking to do. So I'm, you know, as I said the other day, I got interviewed in the Journal Sentinel. I said I was proud of you guys. So, and I am. So keep that up. We're almost there. We're almost there. And remember, like I said to your parents, I didn't want to say to your parent, well, actually I'm recording, so I'm not going to say this, but you're going to have a few more Fridays off after Wednesday. So don't worry about that. So that is open in my AP Classroom now. So if you're all fired up and ready to go for it. If you're not, get your notes together, and you should have your notes there handy. I know there's stuff on Bismarck there. Have that page open. You already got kind of a hint of it, but again, we're trying to maximize points. So again, context, thesis, giving the specific examples, body paragraph 1, at least 2 documents, describe them, cap one of them, get your outside information in there. Body paragraph 2, 2 or 3 documents, cap one of them, describe the other one, get your outside information. Then see how much time you got. You got the counter argument, go for it. So think of it this way: is if even if you don't get to the counter argument, if you do context as a point, thesis as a point, you describe 5 documents. Now we're at 3. You cap 2 of them. That's 5. Outside evidence. We're sitting at 7. 7, and you haven't even got to the counter argument yet. So 7 is really good. Is going to be really good. So that's all I have for today. So any questions? I know we got some moving parts. So again, my AP classroom, log in, do that assignment. It's going to put a timer on you. When you're done with that, continue on with your rescue packet, continue on with the general review. Again, there's some of you here that have not turned in some of the other DBQ practices. Guess what? Everybody who didn't turn in the last one got an email to their parents, so I'm sure you're going to be turning that in too. So the train keeps rolling, so I don't want you to get too far behind. So keep going with that. Any questions for anybody? From anybody?
I used a document for my counter argument. Is that okay?
That's a good question. Who said that?
Julia.
Okay, there you are. I'm sorry. Okay. I'll have to look at it. That's an interesting question. It depends how well you use it, I guess. Did you try to like cap it?
I don't remember.
Okay, I'll take a look at it. That's a good question. That you could probably do. I would think you could do it that way. But again, a lot of this is dependent upon how they set the standard. The rubric is set, but as I think I've told you, once the essays are submitted, the chief reader, all the bigwigs at the College Board start looking at this stuff, and then they set the nuance, to use their term. They set the nuance of the rubric. So what the rubric says might not quite, what I think the rubric says might be something different. But that certainly seems reasonable to me. And I think that would be very effective, actually. So I'll take a look at it. Anybody else? Okay, so I will, Kate, go ahead.
Yeah, is it 4 or 5 documents that we need to describe? Because it's kind of gone a few ways. I've heard it.
The rubric says 4. I'm saying 5.
Okay.
And the reason I do that is just to cover ourselves in case you get one wrong. Then you still have 4.
Yeah.
And you might, there you might stumble into something else too. So if there's one that you absolutely don't know, like what the heck is this about, then you just gotta make sure the other 4 are right. But I'd rather have you take a stab at it. At the minimum, I think you all can. If you read a document, even if you don't know what it's talking about, you can give a brief description of it. You can mention it. So that's why I say to do 5. Okay. Gianna?
Could we use that like 5th document in our counter argument? Like, can we count on doing that, or would you say like not to plan on that?
You can try it. You can try it. You know, that was sort of Julia's question. You know, the reason I'm hesitant about it is because you know, you don't know the question. But you can certainly try it. I think that would be. You can go into. You can go into it thinking that the only problem with that would be is if, you know, as if they're making you decide a either or question, and you got 3 that are for one side and 2 for the other one, how, you know, you may not want to do that, but you could try it. You could try it. That's why we're practicing. And the other thing I would ask, you know, I know we've been throwing a lot of work at you, but you know, that's the nature of the beast. After we do these, yeah, someone, or either privately, probably privately, you need to tell me, do we need to do another one? I don't know. You know, again, my goal is for you to be as comfortable and as relaxed as possible when you get into this, where you're totally prepared. And that's generally everybody, the general feedback I get from all my students. Well, we were ready. We were ready. So if we need to do another one on Monday or Tuesday, you know, it's only 45 minutes just to work on the process. We can do that too. But my plan right now is to this is sort of our final practice. Okay. All right, I will let you go. If you have questions, hang around. I'm going to stop the recording at this point. This recording, if you need to go back and look at those charts, actually the charts will be in Schoology. All that will be taken care of. My AP classroom, don't forget document 5 and 7, ignore. You got 45 minutes to do it, due by Sunday. So thank you all.